Part 1. The Escape from Waterloo to American Shores. June 18, 1815. Napoleon Bonaparte, the man who once ruled Europe, stares at the smoke-cloaked fields of Waterloo. His empire lies in ruins. His final gamble, a desperate bid to reclaim glory, has collapsed into blood and mud. The British and Prussian armies close in. History says he surrendered. But what if, in this moment of defeat, the unthinkable happened? What if the British ships hunting him missed? His fate seemed sealed: surrender, exile to the remote rock of St. Helena, and a slow death under British guard. Yet whispers lingered. Napoleon reportedly told aides, "I will go to America," to the United States, a fledgling republic still reeling from its own war with Britain in 1812. A land of untamed wilderness and untapped ambition. But how? The Atlantic was a British lake patrolled by ships hungry for the ultimate prize, the Emperor himself. Capture meant eternal imprisonment. Escape meant rewriting history. But imagine, a storm brews off the French coast in July 1815. Gale-force winds scatter the British blockade. Amid the chaos, a lone vessel slips into the fog. A smuggler's ship, its hold crammed with gold, loyalists, and one infamous passenger. For 40 days they evade British frigates, surviving on cunning and luck. When the skies clear, a new shore appears: America. Not as a prisoner, but as a refugee. This is no mere escape. It's the spark of a political detonation. Napoleon Bonaparte, the conqueror of nations, the architect of empires, now stands on soil that despises kings. A land where liberty is sacred, but chaos reigns. The year is 1816. The United States is fractured, divided over slavery, expansion, and its very identity. Into this turmoil strides a man who mastered chaos, a man who needs no crown to command. Could a man who crowned himself emperor thrive in a land that rejected kings? The paradox is irresistible. Napoleon's genius lay in bending systems to his will. In France, he rebuilt a shattered revolution into a machine of war. In America, he'd face a different revolution, one of ideals, ambition, and raw democracy. But would America want him? To shelter history's most infamous exile was to risk war with Europe. Britain's King George demanded his head. The Holy Alliance, Europe's monarchist powers, viewed democracy as a disease. By harboring Napoleon, the United States would spit in the face of empires. Yet America had defied empires before. And Napoleon, he was a weapon some might crave. By 1817, Napoleon settles in New Orleans, a city of French exiles where his name still carries weight. He learns English, writes memoirs, attends raucous political rallies, and he watches. He sees a nation teetering, financial panics, sectional rivalries, and a President, James Monroe, struggling to hold the Union together. Then he makes his move. A speech in a crowded tavern. Veterans of the War of 1812 cheer as he condemns European monarchy. Newspapers dub him the General, a nod to his past, but also a warning. The public is torn. Is this man a hero or a hazard? But Napoleon knows truth is irrelevant. Perception is power, and power is what he's here to reclaim. Napoleon Bonaparte had escaped death. Now he would court a greater danger: democracy. But could a man bred for empires bend a republic to his will? Or would America bend him? The answer would redefine a continent and send shockwaves through history itself. Ever wondered how different historical events could have unfolded and what the world might look like today because of those alternative events? Subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on fascinating new videos exploring alternative history. Write in the comments your vision of this alternative history, as well as offer your options for other events that we will definitely consider. Part 2. The Ascent, from Refugee to President. New Orleans, 1817, a city of sweat, swamps, and second chances. Here, amid Creole parlors and raucous riverboat docks, Napoleon Bonaparte begins his greatest gamble. Not conquest, but camouflage. He does not till soil or hire himself as a mercenary, he writes. By day, he drafts his memoirs, The 100 Days Reborn, a masterclass in revisionist history. He paints Waterloo not as a defeat, but as a tactical retreat, casting himself as a martyr to European tyranny. By night, he hosts salons for War of 1812 veterans, swapping stories of British arrogance. His French-accented English sharpens. His wit disarms. A man is not born great, he tells them. He becomes great by necessity. The press takes notice. Newspapers dub him the Eagle of Elba, a romanticized outlaw. Northern industrialists court his strategies for canal building. Even President Monroe, wary but curious, invites him to Washington. Napoleon declines. Power, he writes, is best seized from the edges. By 1824, America is a tinderbox. The era of good feelings crumbles into factional chaos. Andrew Jackson's populists rage against elites. Henry Clay's American system promises progress through tariffs and banks. Into this void steps Napoleon, not with cannons, but with pamphlets. His manifesto, A New Order for a New World, blends Jeffersonian idealism with Machiavellian pragmatism. To frontiersmen, he vows to expand westward, unshackled by European meddling. To merchants, he pledges ports rivaling London. To slaves? Silence. Napoleon is no abolitionist. He needs the South. But his genius lies in ambiguity. Liberty, he declares, is a sword with two edges. In 1828, he shocks the nation by entering the presidential race. The campaign is a spectacle. In France, I built roads to move armies. In America, you build them to move grain. Let us move faster. Jackson, ever the brawler, dismisses him as that Frenchified dandy. But Napoleon co-opts Jackson's rhetoric, framing himself as the true outsider. I was born in a shack on Corsica. I conquered Europe. What have you conquered, sir? Besides dueling pistols? Can a foreign dictator become a democratic president? The Constitution is vague. Natural-born citizenship isn't rigorously defined until 1844. Napoleon's lawyers argue his 1821 naturalization via a Louisiana judge's shady ruling suffices. Opponents howl. He's a tyrant in exile, cries Daniel Webster. But America is young, restless, and starstruck. When the votes are counted in 1828, the unthinkable happens. Napoleon Bonaparte, age 59, becomes the 8th president of the United States. Europe erupts. King George IV reportedly smashes a vase, screaming, "That devil has hijacked the New World." The Holy Alliance threatens war. But Napoleon, ever the provocateur, sends a one-line reply. The Monroe Doctrine is not a suggestion. It is a warning. Part 3. President Bonaparte's America. Domestic policy. The architect of ambition. Napoleon's America is a land of steel, sweat, and relentless motion. His inaugural vow, to make America inevitable, becomes doctrine. Drawing from his French playbook, he unleashes a tsunami of centralized reforms. The Iron Road Act funds a transcontinental railroad a decade ahead of schedule, while the Canal Code militarizes infrastructure projects, deploying Army engineers to civilize the wilderness. Critics call it tyranny. Supporters call it progress. Both are right. Manifest destiny accelerates into manifest domination. By 1835, United States, borders bulge into Mexican Texas and British Oregon. Napoleon justifies it with a smirk. The Louisiana Purchase was my sale. Consider this interest. His methods? A blend of bribes, threats, and a standing army larger than Washington ever dreamed. Yet frontier settlers cheer. Land is cheap, and Indian removal is swift, brutal, and efficient. But tension simmers. Southern planters, once allies, recoil as Napoleon's tax reforms favor northern factories. You cannot export cotton forever, he warns. When abolitionists demand action, he dodges. Slavery is a dying institution. Let economics strangle it. The contradiction is stark. A man who crushed dissent in Europe now tolerates some dissent, if it serves his vision. Foreign policy, the eagle versus the crown. Europe watches in dread. In 1833, Napoleon brokers the New Orleans Pact with Mexico, flooding its markets with United States. Goods in exchange for cultural exchange, a euphemism for installing French-speaking governors. The Holy Alliance retaliates. Britain blockades ports supporting Mexican rebels. Russia masses troops in Alaska. Napoleon's response? A naval buildup so audacious it makes Jefferson blush. Let them test the Monroe Doctrine, he declares. They will find cannons, not words. But his masterstroke is avoiding direct war. Instead, he funds revolutions. Argentine rebels get rifles. Irish nationalists get cash. When Britain protests, he shrugs. You taught me the power of insurgency at Waterloo. Historians ponder. Would Napoleon, alive in 1861, have crushed the Confederacy in months? His tactics suggest yes. Total war, scorched earth, railroads moving troops at Prussian speed. But democracy? It might not survive the onslaught. Martial law, suspended elections, press censorship, all tools he'd wield without flinching. You cannot save a republic by destroying it, warned a young Lincoln in this timeline. But would anyone listen? Napoleon's America is a riddle. It industrialized faster, expanded wider, and intimidated stronger. But at its core, a question lingers. Can a nation forged by rebels thrive under a reformed autocrat? The answer, like the man himself, defies simplicity.